Thanks everyone for joining us today. And today we have a wonderful project that we talk about. I haven't explored it before, and today I will try to explore what it is and how it's helped SRE and DevOps team to enable the delivery pipelines like the rollouts, canary rollouts, or blue, green, or dark launch deployment they did. And that project is the CNCF, and that project is Keptn project. And I am joined by today Brad McCoy, and he's a friend of mine from Ortelius community. And recently he got introduced to the Keptn project, and today is absolutely excited to show us what is the most exciting part of the Keptn project is. And we also joined by Adam Gardner, who's an architect, automation architect at Dynatrace. And both of these guys shows us what the Keptn project best fit for what kind of scenarios. And during this session, you'll be able to understand how you can integrate Keptn into your existing DevOps pipeline or SRE systems or these kind of stuff. So at the end of the session, I try to ask those questions that community asked me to answer these questions from Brad and Adam. So over to you, Brad. Start sharing your screen and help me understand what Keptn project is and what problem it tried to solve.
I'll actually push. Well, let's go to Adam first because he has the slides that we'll talk about today. If that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So we go to Adam first right now. Adam, I'm jumping to you, and you can share your screen and just start talking us about this awesome project.
Yeah, I'm actually going to switch it up a little bit, Brad, today and not jump into too many slides. So, sure. Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me. Is my volume okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
Cool, awesome. So Keptn is an open source cloud native lifecycle orchestration tool contributed to the CNCF, obviously, which is why we're here today. And it's trying to solve three basic problems. Firstly, observability, dashboards, and alerting. So as you're onboarding your microservices, you already know that you need observability. That's what the first thing that Keptn is trying to solve. The next thing it's trying to solve is SLO-driven multi-stage delivery. So by that, we mean modeling a delivery pipeline and then having that set up in a best practice manner with quality gates between the stages. So what that means is basically if your artifact or your the artifact that you're trying to release isn't sufficient quality based on the service level objectives that you give, then the artifact will be stopped at that point in the delivery. So bad code never makes it past that stage and in theory never gets to production. And the third point or area that Keptn is trying to tackle is once your artifacts are running in production, how do we, if a problem does occur, how does Keptn automatically fix those issues? How can we remediate problems as we are running in production to free up more time for humans to actually get involved in the complicated things and actually get more effort back into the dev lifecycle? So one of the ways it does that is obviously Keptn, that's a broad feature set, and Keptn can't do it all, and it shouldn't do it all. Keptn should very much integrate with other best-of-breed technologies. So on the website here, you can see all screenshots of the logos of some of the other tooling that Keptn integrates with: Helm, Jenkins, Dynatrace, Prometheus, Open Tracing for observability. Automation platforms. Basically, you bring your choice tooling and Keptn will orchestrate those sequences of events. So fundamentally, how Keptn is working is you define your sequences and Keptn will orchestrate those sequences of tasks. So on the screen, you see a sequence called delivery, And inside this delivery sequence, we have a number of tasks that Keptn, when you request that the delivery sequence be triggered, Keptn will go ahead and orchestrate these tasks to be run. Now, notice here that we don't have any tooling involved, and that's a strength of Keptn, because we want to split the sequences and the tasks that you're trying to achieve, and we want to pull that apart from the tooling. So we don't want to say, do a deployment with tool X. We want to say, do a deployment. And what that allows you to do in the future, if you change your tooling, everything else stays the same, and all you need to do is flip around your tooling, and your processes remain the same. That's a very, very brief overview of Keptn. Brad, do you want to jump in and
No, yeah,
show
I think
how
you
you
did well.
deploy it?
Oh, yeah, I can show how I deploy it. Yeah, so at the moment, I'm using ArgoCD. So I'll just demonstrate here. You can, okay, here's the screen here. So I just actually added, in Keptn, there's 3 Helm charts that you can use. So you can use the base, and then you can decide if you want to install the Helm service and then the JMeter service as well for performance testing. So if we look in Argo here, we can see last time I didn't have this installed. So I installed the Helm service here and JMeter. So this will give a visual representation of the manifest files in Kubernetes. So you can see here we have the config maps, the services, deployments, etc. So maybe, Adam, do you want to go through and sort of just, maybe we can talk a little bit about high level what each one does?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go to the deployments. There you go.
Yeah, so there are a number of core services. Of course, all of these are, as you'd expect, microservices. The bridge there, well, let's start from the top of the screen. The API service and the API gateway are, of course, Keptn has an API, and whether you interact with Keptn via the command line interface that we provide or directly via the API, ultimately that API service is where your requests are going to end up. Much like kubectl, the command line interface is just a wrapper around the API service. The approval service is actually, you can set deployment. If you're choosing to use Keptn to deploy artifacts, you can actually put in a manual step if you want. And someone would have to log into the Keptn's bridge, which is the UI, and manually click, yes, approve that microservice to move on to the next stage. So that's the approval service. The bridge, as I've said, is the Keptn's UI. It's where you visually interact with everything going on in Keptn. The configuration service, self-explanatory for configuration. And then we get into the Helm service, the JMeter service, the Lighthouse service, all this kind of stuff. So Brad has decided that he wants Helm to respond to a certain event within Keptn. So he has decided that when he asks Keptn to do a deployment, he wants Helm to do that deployment. Now, if Brad didn't like Helm, if Brad wanted to use another tool, like Argo, Brad could just switch around that tooling to not use Helm and use a different tool. Same with JMeter. We have pre-installed JMeter, but if you don't like JMeter or if you don't want to use it, that's cool. Uninstall that service and bring your own tooling. You look like you had a question there, Brad.
I was just going to say, and you're working on the JIRA integrations, aren't you, at the moment?
Yes.
And
yes,
and where
exactly.
where would those JIRA integrations live? You know, when the code's executed after certain events. where would that sort of be executed in the control plane here?
Yep, so you've got two choices. In your, what we're seeing on the screen here, everything is deployed in the same cluster. So in the JIRA service case, you're right, the JIRA service that I have written would sit and listen for particular events. The events are, you decide as the cluster manager. And when that JIRA service basically puts its hand up and says, yes, I know how to respond to that event, whatever it may be. Let me go away and do my piece of work. The other option is that you actually split apart Keptn into two parts. You have the control plane, which is the brain, it's the bridge, the API service. And then you have the execution plane. So if you had a remote cluster across the world, that I could install my JIRA service over there on the other side of the planet, and it would remotely pull in to the control plane and just every 10 seconds or so say, do you have any new events for me? Do you have any new events for me? And if it, as soon as it does, as soon as the control plane says, yes, here's an event, then my JIRA service would kick off. So you can distribute your cluster across however you want to arrange things.
And when you say that you can split out the control plane and the execution plane, can you have two execution planes? Like, let's take an example of multi-region. So can you have two execution planes consuming the control plane? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
That's a perfect use case for multi-region. So what, for example, if you wanted to do global deployments, you could have a control plane sat here and two execution planes, both of them listening for the deployment event. And as soon as they get that, maybe there's a piece of metadata that you decide to pass to say, only do a deployment in this region, or you just say do a deployment and both clusters would go away and do their deployments. Yeah.
And when you define those different regions, is that done in the Shipyard file with the sequences, or where do you define that destination cluster?
No, so the destination cluster would be defined on the service itself. In the remote execution plane, it's remotely pulling in.
I see. Yeah, okay, I understand. And and can you have the concept of like a leader control plane if you wanted to have like high availability across two regions? So could you have two control planes, one's promoted to leader, one's, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I believe that's an, as I say, I'm not a core maintainer, I look after the services, but I believe high availability, that's an area they're actively working on, actually.
Okay, interesting.
How they choose to implement that, I don't know. But.
Yeah, it's a hard problem to solve, I guess, with when you see other tools like Kafka, for example, when they promote the leader, and it can get quite complex fast, I would say. Especially in Kubernetes as well.
In one way, I'm glad I'm not involved in that part of it. So.
Yeah. Okay. And then so we've installed the Helm service, and then JMeter, which is quite cool. Simon, do you mind going on mute, please? And the Lighthouse service. So tell us more about that. This is the quality gates as well, isn't it?
Yeah, Simon, I think you've got some background noise there, mate. If we can mute him. Yes, the light. So if Keptn was purely a control plane, and then you bring some other tooling, there would of course be limited value to that. The value, the extra added value that Keptn brings is we have given you some best practice kind of SRE capabilities out of the box with Keptn. One of those being quality gates. So this is the idea that you provide your service level objectives. So in simple terms, it's a metric and a threshold that a service must meet. And if the service doesn't meet that, the idea is that your deployment, that service, never progresses to the next stage. That job, that whole quality gate grabbing the metrics from a monitoring provider, Prometheus or Dynatrace or any other provider, evaluating that and giving you a decision. That is exactly what the Lighthouse service is doing for you. So we've kind of bundled up that whole workflow, if you will, and we're just giving you that out of the box.
Okay, and then so we have the lighthouse, and then let's say it's past the lighthouse, everything's looking good. We decide to have a sale, and this has a lot of traffic. SLOs are not met. Where does the it's the remediation services down here actually? Yeah. So then, what tells the remediation service that your SLOs are no longer, they're breached, I guess?
Yeah. So what you'll have there is an incoming problem from somewhere, from some tool, Prometheus, Dynatrace, and anywhere. And we provide, as humans, we provide a remediation. Let me try and no, let's stay on your screen. We provide a remediation YAML file, and basically that says if you see this type of problem, let's say a failure rate increase, here is what you do. And maybe that is turning off a feature flag or scaling up the pods or something else. And that is the remediation service is invoked and listens for that problem event, and then does all of that. It looks at the problem, it looks at the remediation YAML file that you have provided, and it then says, I've got a remediation that I need to trigger, send an event, and some other service will respond to that. So everything in Keptn is event-based. So the remediation service basically says, yes, there is a potential fix here, and it will distribute an event. Some other service will then pick that up. So I imagine to bring that full circle, we would have to install another service like Unleash for feature flags or whatever, Ansible for fixes, and that service would listen for the problem event, and it would basically try and turn the feature flag off for you. So you can basically plug and play your own workflows together with Keptn, and Keptn will sit there and orchestrate everything that goes on in the system.
Yeah, that's why I really like it, the whole event-based, bring your own tools. And I love how they're trying to standardize as well with the CD Foundation on those events. It's going to be really great tool. Okay. And then we have Shipyard controller as well. So I assume that's that first file that you showed us. It handles that.
Yes.
And how do you subscribe to an event?
So can you, let's have a look at the JMeter service, for example, and see if we can see the environment variables.
Sure. Okay. JMeter. So this is a live manifest, which is in there now. This is the beauty of Argo. Sometimes it's annoying because you go to test something and then Argo will sync it straight back to what is in the Git repo.
Trying to see the environment variables.
Oh, sorry, that's the service. I need to get the deployment, sorry. Let's go back down to JMeter deployment. And then after all the metadata, we should be able to see
something like pub sub topic.
Okay.
There we go. There you go.
Pub sub topic. Yeah.
So line 333 there, test got triggered. Now, everything that happens, as I say, everything that happens in Keptn is an event of a particular type. So when you look at this, sh.keptn.event.something.triggered, what you need to do is flip to the Shipyard file. So if I just share my screen quickly.
Sure.
So remember our Shipyard YAML file. This is the high-level definition of what an environment looks like to Keptn. So when the JMeter service was listening for the test.triggered event, it's really listening for this name dot triggered. So Keptn will automatically generate a cloud event with sh.keptn.event.this task name dot triggered, and it will blast it out to the world, and then it's on whatever service is listening. So the JMeter service in this case, the JMeter service will say, yep, I know how to do a test. Let me go and grab the properties that someone has given me. Okay, I know I need to do a functional test in the dev stage. Then the JMeter service will go and do what JMeter service does. It will do a test, and it will then signal back to Keptn to say sh.keptn.event.test.finished, and here are the results, Keptn. And then Keptn will say, right, the test is done. Now send out an evaluation event, and so on and so forth. So what you'll find if you look at the Helm service is actually listening for multiple events, and it's listening for deployment.triggered, as in line 11, and it's also listening for release.triggered. And this is what I mean by your Keptn's completely flexible, because it's just a string. You can build up your sequences to do whatever you want. It doesn't even need to be, multi-stage pipeline delivery. It can be anything you want at all.
So let's say in the example that we just looked at on my screen, the test.triggered, if you wanted to subscribe another service to that event, how would that look? So would that be, let me go in a little bit. It's not zooming in. So if I was, let's say I wanted two tools to listen to it. Let's say one was Slack to notify me of a change, and the other one was JIRA for, updating a ticket, for example.
Yeah.
How can I subscribe both? How can I subscribe both of those services to that one event?
Easy, because you're going to have this file in both services, and you just set this pub subtopic to be the same event. I thought you meant the other way around of how do I subscribe this one service to multiple events.
No, yeah. So you're saying that will relate back to that Shipyard file, and then that has those tasks, the 3 tasks that you showed as well, right?
Yeah.
That it will go and do. Yeah. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
That's the part that it's good to understand, I guess, is how those events are subscribing and the consumer producer type architecture. The pub
So what you've actually got, if you scroll up a little bit, when you deploy a Keptn service, you deploy your service, but you also deploy a distributor, and it's the distributor pod that handles all of that connection logic and all of that subscribing.
So you're saying it's a deployment?
It should be. Yeah, it was in the YAML file.
In the YAML, sorry, yeah.
Try and pull up the. Yeah, conceptually, basically, it doesn't really matter for time purposes, but conceptually, you're listening for an sh.keptn.event.wildcard.triggered event.
Yeah.
And the wildcard there is whatever you put in your Shipyard file.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Okay. So we've gone through sort of events, Shipyard files. What else can we talk about? So what's the concept of a uniform? Is it a uniform file?
Yeah, the Keptn's uniform is they're still working on it, but it's the idea that you can pre-select your tools. So you would say, for example, Keptn is wearing a uniform, and that uniform consists of JMeter and Helm and Argo and whatever. And then basically it's just going to install those services for you and pre-subscribe to those particular events. So if you want to provide Keptn as a service to another team in your company, for example, you can just say, tell me the tools you use, and I'll just preset all of that for you and just go deploy it. It's just a a handy way to pre-select which services you want to include in Keptn's base.
I can actually see a good use case for my company, Moola, to use that. It's almost like our internal SaaS version of Keptn, where we want to enforce standards and security compliance, and then we say, these are approved tools that we've sort of signed off on, and then here's your own instance, you can go crazy. So I can see a great use case for that.
So what you could do is say, here are the events that you can are possible that you can subscribe to, and then here are the tools you can use to subscribe to them, and they can basically wire them together in any way they see fit. That's up to them, but you've still got a level of governance over what's happening and where.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I actually started to install Prometheus in here as well. So maybe the next talk we can dig a little bit more into Prometheus.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen again?
Yeah, I shall.
Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to show this actually, rather than just looking at YAML files, I wanted to show what this looks like. So this Shipyard file has 3 stages. It's got dev, staging, and production stage. Now, as I've mentioned, sequences can be anything you want them to be. In this case, we have 2 sequences in the dev stage. We've got the delivery sequence, and we've got one called delivery direct. The only real difference here is that delivery direct doesn't do test or an evaluation. So it's really just modeling, just directly deliver that artifact. Don't kind of test it or do anything with it. Now, when you get to the staging stage, this is how you start to, by default, sequences stand alone. So if I ask for the delivery sequence to run, it'll run those tests and then stop. And that's perfect. But what if I want to start wiring things together in a end-to-end multi-stage or multi-step sequence? So what I can do here, for example, I can say the delivery sequence in staging this time is triggered when the delivery sequence in dev is finished. So in that case, as soon as this sequence finishes, this one will automatically start. Now, the difference here, notice we're passing this metadata called blue-green service. Now, to Keptn, that's all it knows is it's going to pass some metadata. What will actually happen behind the scenes is we're assuming at this point, whatever tool listens for this event is able to use this and do something with it. In our case, the Helm service will be able to listen to this and actually deploy a blue-green version of the artifact. So in that way, when your services get new capabilities, you're not waiting for Keptn to catch up. If you have a tool that can do canary deployments, bring it along, pass the metadata in, and Keptn will orchestrate that. So there's no limitation on what Keptn can do. It can do blue-green, it can do canary, it can do rollbacks, it can do shadow deployments. It's all about what the tool that you bring can do. So looking, what does this actually look like in the from the command line? So I would, for example, trigger a delivery like this. I would say trigger a delivery direct sequence. I give it my project, which in this case is Sock Shop. I give it a service, my carts database. I give it an image. I give it an image tag name, obviously. And then Keptn will go away and trigger those events.
Quick. Yeah. Sorry, quick question about the command line. Can you go back?
Mm-hmm.
So when you say, okay, you're triggering the delivery, the parameters image and tag, are they custom parameters to this particular trigger, or you need that for something, if that makes sense. So I understand, the project, the service.
Yeah.
How come you need image and tag in this case?
So yeah. So what that will do actually, let me skip back a second. And
I guess my question is like, can you keep passing like your own custom parameters in with these triggers?
yes, you can. So the step before, what I actually did here was I onboarded a service, a microservice. With this command here. Keptn onboard a service called carts database in a particular project. Now, a project is just a wrapper in Keptn's world for a container of stuff, basically. And I passed it a Helm chart. So if I now what this image does is basically overwrite that the values, update the values in that Helm chart. So here I'm saying, right, modify the Helm chart, pass it this image, and probably more important in this case, because the Helm chart will already be looking at the Mongo image, but it's the particular version for this deployment.
Yeah. So how do you know that it's a Helm chart and it's not like a customize or another sort of custom service?
Yeah, it doesn't really, as I say, it doesn't really matter to.
Okay, because it's an event.
Keptn.
Is that correct? Because it's
Yeah.
an event, and then whatever's receiving knows what to do. So it's just like, give me that. Oh, I know what to do.
Yeah.
I see.
So if I show you in the UI what this looks like.
Yeah.
No, that's production. Let's get back to dev. So when I ran that CLI command, Keptn goes ahead and generates this cloud event for me. And you can see here, dev, there's my stage, delivery, there's my sequence, triggered. And it basically passes in these values in the data block in the configuration change.
And when you just did the trigger, like, let's say, is it common that, let's say, for example, you have Jenkins and you're running a pipeline, you want to trigger, how would you like get a feedback loop to say, okay, that worked or it didn't work in, like, for example, Jenkins?
Yeah, so every triggered event, there's a life cycle to all of these events. So if I skip down to the very bottom here, the delivery says delivery started and then delivery finished. And you can see here, there are two parameters, the status parameter and the result. So of course, status may mean it finished, but it failed, or actually I tried to run, but I couldn't actually even run. So the status would be error, for example. So what you can actually do is you can subscribe to any events. You can subscribe to finished events. And that's what I'm doing with the JIRA service. I'm subscribing to an evaluation, a quality gate, finished. So as soon as a quality gate finishes, I want a JIRA ticket. And that's precisely the event I'm listening for, is evaluation.finished. Because if I show you the evaluation finished, what I get when a quality gate finishes as part of a pipeline, I get, of course, all of the results of the quality gate itself, but I get all of the values, the raw values that were pulled back from the monitoring tool, whatever it may be, and I get the actual result of the quality gate itself. So in this case, it was a pass, and the score was 100%. So I know that my deployment is perfect. And to me, that's the important information that I want in my JIRA, because if a deployment fails, I want to know the metrics that failed, and I want to know the raw values of why it failed. So then I can immediately assign that to the relevant team or the relevant developer so that they can work on that issue.
You could almost do you could do a whole life cycle through JIRA. So you have a service desk, someone raises a ticket saying, I want a new QA environment, then Keptn will listen to that event. It will then go and try and provision that environment based on your form parameters. Once it's finished, then update the ticket to close. This is done. Would be quite cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Those sorts, that's exactly what I mean about you can build any workflows in Keptn that you want, as well as getting all of this good stuff with evaluations and artifact delivery as well. And you get that for free, basically.
Yeah, so it's not just like another CICD. It's much more. It can actually do that whole self-service, that that tool integration in a generic way, which is really cool. That's why I quite like it.
Exactly.
And with other sort of businesses you've worked with and you've shown them, what are some of the common use cases that they use?
So they typically start when Keptn's shown, it's like, wow, there's a lot we can do here, but where do we start? And I usually advise starting very simple and using just the quality gate evaluation piece to start with, because what you can do, usually companies have a pipeline already. They will have, Jenkins or Azure DevOps or whatever it might be. And what you can do is just ask Keptn to evaluate the quality of your build. And then when they get comfortable with that and they start trusting the results that are coming back from their monitoring tools, then you can start to integrate to say, okay, well, maybe Keptn, you can bring it back a step, and maybe you ask Keptn to trigger the test first, and then as soon as the test is done, then Keptn will automatically evaluate. So you just kind of gradually grow with your comfort and your knowledge of how you're working. But the best practice thing, and especially in your role as a head of, instilling those best practices across teams, because what I usually find is some teams will be doing it, others won't, and this gives a really standardized template for other teams to follow. It's very, very easy. Once you've got it done once, you can just say, copy and paste this YAML file, and you're away.
Yeah, no, that's what I really like about it, and I can see the devs really accelerating their delivery by having that sort of standardized template as well, which is really cool, and also sort of acting like that interface in the middle where if you change your tools out. So the other day someone was talking to us about Dynatrace PagerDuty or something like that, and they asked, can Keptn be in the middle? And then I could sort of see the value where this whole event thing, like, you're not just doing all these integrations with tools, like let's say you have to build 10 different custom integrations, where if you're all using that same event language, it's very easy to swap things out as well.
Yeah. To be honest, that's where Keptn originally came from, is because we were doing things internally, and one team would go and integrate with something, and that's great. So what do? You copy and paste the code, but you copy and paste all of the bugs with it. And then, you try and change that tool, and your pipelines get to a point where they're just too fragile to move, and you can't change the tooling because we can't break the pipeline. We thought, there's got to be a better way to split what we're trying to achieve with the tooling that actually achieves it. And that's where Keptn, the idea first came from.
Good to know. Especially when other tools, like the APIs, if they update them or if things change, you're not aware of those changes and they break as well. It's beyond your control. So yeah, I can see the good use case there.
The other thing, as I say, I've written the JIRA service for Keptn. So if you want a JIRA tickets with Keptn, you don't even need to know the first thing about JIRA's API. You just go and install the service. it's on me as the maintainer of that service to keep that current and keep that up to date. And so the democratization of knowledge, it becomes very easy to say, you know, I don't know the first thing about Helm, but I can just drop that in and it will do my deployments for me. I don't want to use Helm anymore. I want to use Argo. Cool. To switch that around again, I don't need to know anything about Argo necessarily because someone else is maintaining that service for me.
And I guess, yeah, and because it's open source, you can choose to, if you, for your business, need a particular change, you can go make a pull request and sort of add to the product as well, which is what I see myself doing as we start adopting this as well.
Yep.
Which is quite exciting.
So as I'm just sharing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, we could try and build a tool like this, but building it with a small team, it's just not possible. It's too much maintenance and operational support as well. So it makes sense to go to a good open source project like this.
Absolutely, and you get the network effect as well, don't you? Because you know, there are many heads are better than one, and we're all contributing, and everyone's benefiting from this, and also, you know, just the ideas, just that could we do this? Can we do this? And anyone who's listening, I encourage you, if this has piqued your interest, if you thought, you know, this service would be great, this integration would be great, you don't even need to know how to write it, and please don't think to, you know, the idea is enough. Someone else will come along and help you with the technical stuff if you don't know. Just bring that idea, and someone smart, we're a very, very friendly community, someone will come along and help you.
Yeah. So
just to round this off, when we do a deployment, this one is for the database, but imagine this was triggering a delivery of the carts service. This is Keptn's view of the life cycle. So remember our Shipyard file, we had deployment, test, evaluation, release. Well, that's exactly what you see here. And just to kind of wrap it up again in terms of the tooling that's responding, the deployment got triggered event. Here we go. Here it is. And here is our metadata, the direct in this case, because it's the database. But if I drop this down, you'll actually see that it is the Helm service that responded to this event. And then Helm, when it's finished, 2 minutes later, Helm says, yep, I'm done. I'm successfully deployed this artifact. And then Keptn goes ahead and issues the test event. And in that case, JMeter responds and says, yeah, I'm going to do some tests now. I'm going to do, let's see what it was. Yep, a performance test in this case. And then, as we mentioned at the beginning of the call, the Lighthouse service is one that comes out of the box with Keptn. That is the thing that goes away and, again, issues another event to go and retrieve the SLIs from a particular monitoring provider, in this case Dynatrace, but it could be Prometheus or any other provider. When those metrics have come back, the Lighthouse service evaluates the result, and actually you get a different user interface. You click in here. This is a history of all of the quality gate evaluations that have happened for this service, and of course you get all of the raw values back from the monitoring tool and all of your pass, warning, or fail criteria, and so on and so forth. The sequence just carries on, and actually the release event, the Helm service picks that back up again. So the Helm service is listening for two different types of events. And then finally, when we're done, the Shipyard controller says, yep, I'm all done now. I know that I've done all of my tasks, and I'm finished this sequence. And then, because of the triggered on event that we specified in the Shipyard file, automatically Keptn will go and do exactly the same thing in staging. And if we scroll down in the Shipyard file, the production, surprise, surprise, has a delivery sequence in production that is triggered on the staging sequence finish. So that's how easy it is to build end-to-end pipelines with Keptn. You just plug them together in a YAML file, and Keptn will do the rest. So there we've got a 3-stage delivery pipeline by bringing your own tooling.
Yeah, I'm really interested tomorrow with when we start talking about Ortelius and the GitOps and how we can sort of do some integration brainstorming there as well. Would be quite cool. Talk about that GitOps model where maybe when events triggered, it's going to update the Git repo, which then Argo will take care of the rest, and as it syncs. And yeah, there'll be a lot of cool stuff to talk about tomorrow.
Definitely. Simon, did you have any thoughts or questions or anything you'd like to bring up?
Thank you, but that's wonderful. I think you explained it. Too many good questions and these confusion around my mind. So I have seen in the CNCF ecosystem, I look at these kind of tools. As you all know, the landscape is so huge. There's so many things in it. And people try to ask this question themselves. Do we have some tool available? They can do the intelligence of using the tool. They understand which tool is fit better for which scenario. So the first question came up in my mind. Keptn is providing a CICD, let's say, kind of a pipelines. Plus, it's efficiently doing some kind of swaps. Let's say, in the current scenario, we're using some scaling metrics for Kubernetes with KJA or Knative. There are so many tools in that scaling words. There are some monitoring tools. There's so many of them. So Keptn is a tool which you can swap different tools around it. So it has this responsibility to understand, and you can swap around the different tools you are using it. And it's kind of a standard YAML file, and you don't do enough kind of researching of your own. It's the heavy lifting job of the Keptn to understand, to swap, and the functionality, and that's written in the YAML file.
Yep. So what you are effectively doing is you're defining what you want to do, first of all, because typically these will probably be two different teams in a company. It will be the team that decides what to do and the team decides what tooling to do it with. So firstly, you're deciding what to do. Now that is going to be a standard. That's not going to change very often. What may change, depending on the team, is what tooling they decide to bring to the party. And it's giving you the flexibility in the future or even tomorrow to very quickly change that tooling. So when you look at the CNCF landscape, you're right, there's a lot of different tools there. And picking the best ones to do a release or picking the best tool to do a deployment, that should be easy to change if you decide that there is a better tool that comes along tomorrow. It shouldn't be a 6-month project to kind of throw away everything you've done and re-implement with another tool. It's giving you that flexibility to define workflows and sequences of tasks independent of the technology that actually implements those tasks.
Wonderful. That's the biggest headache right now for a lot of the enterprises and the teams, because they want some kind of a swap between, because in a service mesh where, let's say there are 20 service meshes out there, and if they want to choose this service mesh like Istio for the Canary rollouts, so the Docklands deployments, or the Bluegate deployments, but let's say in the future they can swap another service mesh, Linkerd, that. So in the previous scenario, there is so much need to change about that. But in the Keptn era, is you just need to update the YAML file and you just update the field that now in the next release, you use some other tool as compared to the tool right now that's already have. And that's great news for me. And another next question for me, my side as well. So I can see as a Keptn can do the DevOps kind of scenarios, the SREs scenarios, and the GitOps scenarios as well. They can adopt its methodologies that already had in the market for the very long time, but also it's adopted the newer methodologies that came up in the form of GitOps pipelines and these kind of scenarios. So can you elaborate this person point? If somebody's are using just DevOps and the DevOps pipelines, and they're using the different Jenkins tools or other, like let's say Puppet or Ansible or Terraform or these kind of tools, how they can integrate with the Keptn, and if somebody are using how Keptn integrate with these scenarios, and if somebody are going to use ArgoCD and Argo deployments, we see the demo is there for the Argo is set up very tremendously. So Keptn is for the SREs, DevOps, and GitOps.
Yeah, so there's a couple of a couple of answers to that question. So Keptn comes out of the box with some pre-built capabilities. You're right. So the Lighthouse service being one of them, and also the remediation service being the other. So Keptn comes pre-built to be able to judge, pull metrics from a monitoring provider, judge the quality of those metrics, and give you a pass, warning, or fail score of your build. The other pre-built capability is the remediation service, which you provide a remediation sequence and you provide a remediation tool, let's say Ansible or Unleash or Launch Darkly or whatever, that can implement those remediation actions, and Keptn will orchestrate that happening. But to answer your other question, Keptn doesn't necessarily care what tools perform those actions. And that's its flexibility, because you can change, if you change from one feature flag provider to another tomorrow, all of Keptn stays the same because your shipyard stays the same. What you're trying to do stays the same. You're still trying to do a deployment, for example. You're still trying to do a test. Today you're using JMeter. Tomorrow you might be using LoadRunner. That's fine. So it's giving that flexibility to experiment with other tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's absolutely wonderful. So it's a one file that you absolutely you need to take care of this number one file. Let's say in the Kubernetes landscape, we already know we have to know what the YAML file it is, and you can version control that file. But in the Keptn world, you have the same file, and then you values that this is the all the fields are stays the same, but you can swap the tooling around that. You can use this tool or that tool or any other cloud native computing foundation tool for that perfect scenario. But at the end of the day, that's file is absolutely a standard file that dev team understanding and the ops team already understand. But dev says that no, we're not using this kind of tooling in the development, and all we use not this Prometheus tool. I will shift to another monitoring tool, or let's say we can just edit out these values. So that's a wonderful. I think this flexibility is missing in cognitive computing foundation CNCF landscape. We have now a tool that can come certain ways of these kind of scenario. So next question for those people who haven't got into the Keptn right now already. So where do they get started? The community talking about Keptn projects, and is at that moment what's missing and what's the most exciting feature?
Wow, there's a lot there. So first bit of that, I'm going to pass to Brad, because Brad's just recently got involved with Keptn. So you're the best one to say how to get involved.
So the best thing to do is go to keptn.sh, and it'll tell you all, how to get started. But join Slack, say hello, introduce yourself, and then all of a sudden you'll get all these great people come to you and say welcome, and how can I help you. Getting started in Slack is a great way to start off, and they're very welcoming. They invite, they say hello to, a bit of a shout out to new members each week as well, which I thought was really cool. Go through GitHub. So if you just search GitHub Keptn, you'll see a lot of issues and just start to really go through the code. So I went through all the Helm charts because I'm interested in how I'm deploying it with Argo. So I've already submitted a couple of issues because I want to add a couple more additions. So yeah, just get started with the CLI, just keep it basic, and then I think it does take a while to sort of understand what it actually is, but as you keep going and going, you then say, okay, this is exactly what it is, and this is how it just gets awesomer each time. So yeah, just go to Slack.
If you do join the Slack, by the way, reach out to Brad and I, say that, let us know you're in this region in APAC, and we'll we can assist. We'll certainly. They're a friendly bunch on there, definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I forgot the rest of the questions. What's next? What's next, and what's coming up, and what's exciting? So what do we need? We need you, basically. We need ideas. We need, as I say, I wrote the JIRA integration. We need more integrations with other tools. So if you have a tool that you love, bring it along. Let's even if you don't know how to do it, drop into the Slack, ask. There's a dedicated channel for integrations. To drop into there, ask how we get started integrating. Someone will give you various options, and the more of the ecosystem that we can connect with, the more use cases we can tackle. In terms of what's coming up, so that's on the integration side, which is where I live. In terms of the core, I think the big things, Keptn 0.9, we're introducing, or they, should I say, are introducing a webhook, so that basically at the moment it's a subscribe model, so you listen for events, but now we're going to flip that around and have events proactively being pushed out to any endpoint that you specify. So that'll be a nice way to flip around the model. Multi-region clusters, I'd love Brad to get a demo working for that, because that would be a really nice use case. Remote execution planes and scaling Keptn globally. That would be a really, really good example to show. So there's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff happening.
I'm close to the multi-region stuff, by the way. It's coming along nicely.
Nice.
Do you have any other questions for us, Simon? You might be on mute. But yeah, I'd like to thank you for inviting us today as well. It was a good chat, I think. It was a little bit different to normal slides and stuff, and I think hopefully my questions would answer a lot of thoughts that people were having when they're starting off as well. So yeah, I think it's a good demonstration.
No, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it very much. And yeah, thank you very much. First of all, to Brad, Siam, thank you for having us here. And also a quick shout out to Dean, who originally introduced me to Brad. Haven't given him a shout out yet, but yeah, that's the reason.
We'll get him on here next time. Yeah, we'll get Dean on here next time. Looks like Simon's might be he's having some issues.
Oh, he's just dropped off.
Yeah, still recording.
Yeah, cool.
I can't stop it, but yeah.
No worries. Cool, excellent. Well, yeah, I guess thank you everyone for joining. Brad, I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning for more fun with Ortelius, Keptn,
yeah.
and
I guess
Argo.
we better do a shout out to CloudNativeFM Islamabad. So if you do want to come to talks like this, you can join the CNCF community page for the Cloud Native Islamabad as well.
Thank you very much, guys. I really liked your style of being presenting and really learned a lot in a very shorter amount of time to be Keptn. So this is the first time and today I'm exploring about this kind of project and of thoughts that we are needing this kind of tooling because there are so many projects in the CNCF landscape, and who has this ability to learn all these kind of tools to grasp and consume all the information, consume all the learning curve behind this all tooling, so we can know how these other tools are that have an integration point between these different tools, and they can decide for which scenario you can tackle these kind of things and provide the standard way for you, and you don't need to put on the month of innovation of just changing and swapping the technologies between them. Now you have one single file, you can change the bits that you use this technology today, you can move to another technology in the world, because in the CNCF landscape and CNCF community, they are absolutely growing in a very rapid pace. And today I'm learned this amount of and knowledge with you, these guys, and I'm absolutely get in touch with you about these other innovations that's coming up in the Keptn projects. But really feel lucky to have connected with you as well, and hope to have you on the podcast as well on the CloudNativeFM. And I'm encouraging everybody who are listening to us today, go check out the Keptn Slack channel and to DM us what is going to happen there. And if you are interested to see what points our Keptn is already missing, or what points you need to do that Keptn has some kind of integrations should have, but it doesn't already, do give us this feedback. Might be at the rate Keptn project on Twitter handle, Slack us, DM us on the Slack, because community and the open source project is, they need feedback, and the feedback is the best way to grow about the project, what the community feel about the project, what's happening in the space. That's really important. Everybody who's listening to us, we need your feedback. You can connect with any one of us on the Twitter side, inside. We really have your thoughts has been recognized. So final thoughts, guys, before we let you go. Both of you, start that.
Okay. Yeah. Just thank you very much for having us again. Come join. Let's build something. Let's build something great together. It's yeah. We're only just getting started, I feel, and yeah. There's a lot of smart people listening to this out there. So come join the ride.
Yep, that pretty much sums it up for me as well.
Awesome. I think we're going to lose Sam again.
Thanks, everyone. And actually, New Zealand is coming up in the Pakistan, and the series start, I think, is November 17th. So we both enjoy that. But thank you very much. I hope to see you at the KubeCon. Did you have any talks there, or what's your plan for the Keptn project for the KubeCon?
Is there anyone?
I'm sure they will.
Yeah,
I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So we hope to catch you again in the future. Thanks, Brad, and thanks, Ajam.
Sure.
And hope to connect with you again in another session. So stay tuned with the cncf.io/Islamabad community. And we'll see you again in the kid option as well. Bye-bye.
Yep, that sounds good. Thanks very much.
Thanks. See you guys. Thanks,
See you
everyone.
later. Bye.